go to the film festival and just simply fill myself with film for 5 weeks. And I loved it. I guess I'd have to say that I'm a film buff from an inherited factor. My mom worked for the theater industry back in the 1930s. She was a film booker for a local film chain in Washington State. And I got my love of film very early on, and I think that, well, the film festival itself came so much later, but when I first became an adult and had money of my own, working full-time, and every weekend there were a group of us from the library who would go to films. It didn't matter whether it was a foreign film or a first run, whatever. We just simply enjoyed films. As a kid, there was the weekly matinee, which back in those days was 25 cents to see a double feature, a newsreel, and at least one cartoon. So there's a certain love there, an appreciation that has grown more and more with the years. Paul Fable, of all people, said it best, that if you look at the literature of the 20th century, at least 30% of it exists only as film. And you don't think about that. Film as literature? Well, yes, it is. It's an art form, but it's also a literary form. Screenplays, for example. Yes, there are those that are adapted from books, but most of them are first time out. Let's see if this will make a great movie. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, the audience will tell you. So I did go to the Ridgemont Theater for a great many years. That was always one of my joys, because I'd never come across the concept of foreign films until I was an adult. It wasn't until I started working at the library that I became exposed to so much in the way of culture. It was wonderful. And I'm a Gemini, so I like everything, or at least a little bit of everything. What can I tell you? The changeover from just being a part-time film goer to a full series, I made it simply because I discovered I could. And my first year I saw 76 films, and I thought that was great. And my second year I saw 106 films. And then last year I saw 112. And it's sort of, gee, how far could I actually go? Well, there is a finite number. You cannot see all 194 films in the film festival unless there were perhaps a sixth week. This is something that the founders of the film festival might consider. Either that or cut down on the number of films that they show to give everyone a chance to see every film. There are some films, of course, when you become a full series goer and get a chance to go to the press screenings, you will see films that you would not have drug yourself into the theater to see. But that is very good too, because it gives you the balance, that the perspective that you need to say, oh, that was a great film, or that was the most abominable piece of trash that I've ever seen on the screen. And how could they possibly pay money to put a film together like that? So it's got some great highs and the occasional low. Probably one of the worst lows in the film festival is when the opening night ceremonies are underway and they discover that all of the people who were supposed to come, who had something to do with the film, are not going to show. And suddenly there's an immediate downward effect for the viewer, because we've gone there with the idea, gee, who are we going to meet tonight? So that's a factor that can be a disappointing.
So how did how did you process 112 films? You mentioned that and what was your strategy to see all the films?
Well, I went to 3 press screenings in the morning and at least 2 films then in the evening. I discovered that 5 films was really my maximum for the day. I tried 6 films twice, and I was so draggy the next day that I don't think that I really was able to enjoy the films that I saw the following day, at least the first part. It didn't seem like I was seeing as many films as I had, but then suddenly you look back after 2 weeks and you've seen over 40-some films, and you're thinking, wait a minute, that's an awful lot of films. I'm well ahead of my last year's run, and am I going to be able to continue this? I had a couple of instances where I realized that there were more films that I could have seen. Given the best of all possible worlds and no other commitments during the film festival, I could have seen 125, possibly more. The reason I didn't is because I had other factors in my life. I had 3 walking tours to give to students from the McClure Middle School, and that took 3 mornings and early afternoons, so I missed press screenings for I think 5 days of the total press screenings. And that is a factor in, if you really want to see the maximum amount of films, you make sure that nobody can get a hold of you for the whole duration of the film festival. And I'm learning that.
So what do you tell family and friends? You just say you can't contact me.
That's about it. I say unless there's an absolute emergency, I'm simply going to be en route to a theater or between theaters, and I'll contact you when and where I can, which is fun because I'm often getting calls from family before 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's the time that I'm sleeping, especially during the film festival.
Do you have any types of films that you look forward to seeing? Like you say, I want to see the French movies, I want to see the Japanese movies, or do you just see whatever captures your fancy?
Well, now that's one of the things that I have enjoyed over the years is the vast number of different countries that offer films for the festival. And one of the things that I try to look toward doing is trying to see at least one film from each country of origin. If I can do that, then that gives me a greater perspective on the appreciation of film as both art and also as political and cultural, well, a key to understanding the country who has produced the film, or whose citizens have produced the film. At the same time, there are films that I will go to see no matter who the director or actors are. I would and have enjoyed seeing every film that Iceland has offered to the film festival, many of which I considered to be among the year's top 10. There were a number of films that, to me, hit just the right chord so well that I was hoping that someone would pick them up for distribution. And of course, in many cases, that hasn't happened. That's kind of the breaks of any film festival, is you don't know when something is being offered, no matter how good it is, whether it's going to be picked up by a distributor and given the distribution that it deserves. On the other hand, I've seen some films that I would hope that no one would have the sense to pick up for distribution, and from the last 2 years, unfortunately, someone has. So 2 films which I deemed to be the worst of last year's and worst of this year's film festival are going to be seen by larger audiences, and I'm very sorry in that respect. Yeah. Gravesend from 1996 and The Small Hours from 1997, both of which I felt were distinguished wastes of time. In the case of Small Hours, the language was so useless and did not move the story forward at all. And I thought, if these people actually did talk like this, I wouldn't have anything to do with them. They have nothing to offer to me. And as a matter of fact, neither did their stories in each case. Gravesend last year was such a ridiculous film because uh, people get killed in it. It's almost like the whole film was a gift to gratuitous violence, and it had no point. Uh, the characters kind of drift off at the end, those who are survivors. So why did they bother to make the film? Then there are films which unfortunately I can't talk about because they were from the Secret Film Festival, but which, yes, this is what it's all about. So there are some extremely wonderful highs.
And lows.
And lows. Which is great because it's a perfect cross-section of the human endeavor, is that there are times that you're going to try and put something together that you hope will be wonderful, and it turns out to be the Turkey of the Year award from all aspects. The lighting didn't work. The actors had no idea of what they were supposed to do. And the worst part was that the storyline didn't go anywhere. And the audience, if they had had the chance, would have all walked out before 10 minutes had gone by. Unfortunately, or fortunately, there are films like Ulysses Gaze, for example, where you actually could have walked out the minute that the barge with Lenin appears in the picture, go out, have a nice dinner with friends, and come back, and you see the barge disappearing off into the distance, and you haven't missed any of the storyline of the film. So a lot of people enjoyed The English Patient. I was very, very disappointed with it. I found that the supporting characters were the ones that I liked the most. They had the most to offer, and I felt sorry and respected them. The main characters didn't, they just struck me cold. They didn't give me any kind of a, I guess the people who enjoyed it from the standpoint that it was a romance in the time-honored tradition of romance. For me, romance has to be believable. The people who are spending their time in it have got to be at least likable. If I don't like them, I have better things to do. I have other films to see.
So how does your film experience throughout the year compare to the Seattle Film Festival? Do you just quit seeing films during the year? Or?
No, actually I don't. Although it's interesting, people said, well, now that the film festival's over, you're going to go on a hiatus. And I said, no, I'm going out with friends this coming Sunday afternoon. There's something that's going to be shown that wasn't in the film festival, and I did want to see it. There is a certain amount of physical chemistry in my life that demands films. If I can't see them on television, I have to see them in the theater. And I prefer to see them in the theater when it comes down to it, because I want the big screen effect. I want to be able to become a part of that film. And that's not something that you can do sitting in your home, knowing that you're in your home. In a theater, there's something transitional enough for it that you can become part of the film. For me, it's just one of the joys of sitting up in the front row is that you do become part of the film. There's no way you can escape it. The screen's there, the action is there, and you're drawn into it in spite of yourself. The press screenings were different in that they were shown in smaller venues than some of the top films in the festival, which is good, because it gives you a chance, if you see a really good film, say, oh, I'm going to see that again. It's going to be at the Egyptian, so that'll give us a great screen. The Harvard exit has some drawbacks. I keep hoping that each year that they will repair a couple of seats in the front row, but I guess we should be glad that we still have theaters that are big enough to hold more than 600 people.
But it's funny because I talked to Ron Beach. He's another front seater. And what else draws you to this front seat?
The fact that your view is not going to be blocked by anybody else. And for a lot of foreign films where you have a language barrier and you need to be able to see the subtitles, sometimes that's vital. I found, though, in many cases, when I was watching a foreign film, particularly in a language that was totally unknown to me, that I was not as aware of the subtitles as, say, I would be watching Seattle Opera, for example, with its super titles. It's like the story was so well done that it almost didn't need the translation, that you could follow it along well enough that there was a bonding there, which I guess is what part of the hope of the film's creators is, that we do bond with the audience.
So do you understand any foreign languages, or is it just English?
Spanish was my language of choice in high school, in junior high school. I had 7 years of it, so that's one of the few languages that I can listen to and not have any difficulty following along without. Italian is similar enough to Spanish that I have the same joy there, that again I can just simply release myself from the bottom of the screen. But it's like with certain films, Brother of Sleep, which was year before last, an incredibly beautiful film, and one which was so moving to me that they could have spoken in tongues, literally. The German was not a distraction. And I'd have to say that I know very few words in German, but you pick up as the film goes along. It's like somehow the subtitles kind of fade away, and you may be getting them on a subconscious level, but you're so in touch with the film that everything else is unnecessary.
So, do you ever see films after the festival that you've already seen in the festival? Like, if you know something comes up 2 months later, I liked it at the festival, I'll see it again.
Yes, I did that. Was it 2 years ago with Celestial Clockwork? One of the films which I really hoped would be picked up from '96 was Boca a Boca, Mouth to Mouth, which I thought was one of the funniest films that I had seen in years. It was an offering from Spain. It was extremely well crafted. It was hilariously funny, even if we hadn't had the subtitles to tell us what was going on. It was quite obvious, and it was charming. It was captivating. The characters all had a purpose, and the denouement of the film was perfect. I mean, everything worked. You weren't totally surprised, perhaps, by the ending, but it was surprising how well done it was. It was a film that I put in the category of delicious, because it hit every one of my senses at once, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And it hasn't been picked up. The same with the Icelandic films. Agnes, I thought, was a very, in its own way, very depressing, but such a hauntingly beautiful film. And in that case, it was the joy of watching incredible cinematography. Someone who knew the landscape, who knew the people, and got from his actors exactly what he wanted in the way of performances. It was that perfect meld. My favorite Icelandic film was now let's see if I can even remember the name. It's the one where the young man from Japan goes to Iceland to do the honor for his parents who were killed in an automobile crash.
Cold Fever.
Cold Fever. I think that was perhaps one of the best films that has come out of the film festival certainly in the last 5 years. I love Broadway damage, but it hasn't been picked up yet, so we'll have to wait and see. There are films that I've seen during the Secret Film Festival. Some of them were so good that I thought to myself, if this doesn't come back on our first run soon, I'm going to write to somebody. And of course, with all my other commitments, I haven't gotten around to it. But at the same time, I've also seen at least a couple of films, one each year, I'd say, from the Secret Festival that it came to me, why on earth did they show that? I love historical films, films that give you a great documentary from countries or areas that you don't think about. Mother Bell, the Turtle Lake, which was an Indonesian film of 2 years ago, was an incredible film. It had film footage running from 1912 up through around 1933, and it gave an incredible number of aspects to what life was like in Indonesia at that time. It starts off with the eruption of Anak Krakatau in the late 1920s, and then moves back and forth, filming in Batavia, now Jakarta, and on the island of Nias, which is northwest of Sumatra. It's just fascinating and well done. It's a sort of thing that I would like to have seen more of, and I would like to have seen it again. There again, it was not picked up for a regular run anywhere. But that's a problem, I think, with documentaries, is that you expect to see them either with film festivals or perhaps as a short subject accompanying a regular full-length film.
So, do you remember any festival moments of directors talking to the audience, or any star encounters that you can recall?
Now, what's his name? The Pillow Book, which was just an outstanding evening
Peter
altogether.
Greenaway, yeah.
Peter Greenaway. It was an evening that I won't forget. I bought the book in the lobby, so I had it there. At the end of the film, I was able to talk with the director himself for a few moments, and I took copious notes of his talk. I also took copious notes of the French cinematographer, Captain Conan, Bertrand Tavernier. That was 5 pages of notes, and I haven't transcribed any of these. That's the other thing that I tend to do, is if there is any kind of dialogue between people who are involved with the film, either as actors or producers, directors, etc., I do try to keep a tablet with me throughout the film festival, and I do take notes on a regular basis. I think that probably has something to do with the journalistic abilities in my background. I am editor of the Queen Anne Historical Society newsletter and on a newsletter committee for another organization. So, and there's the other half of my life is the written word. There's a number of books that I've enjoyed all through my life, ones that I reread the same way that I enjoy seeing specific films over and over again. But a number of them have never been translated on the screen, and I would love to see that happen. So maybe I need to move into a more supportive role of the film industry and get out there and lobby for 90% for the arts, 10% for the government, something like that. It's been a great love affair. And it's a love affair that's lasted more than one generation in my family, and I hope that it will continue to thrive and be balanced by other good literature in the form of books.
So, you have any advice to give to the film festival goer or new film festival goer?
To the new film festival goer, don't try to see every film. You can't do it. Just relax, knowing that, and see as many films as you can. if you become a full series pass goer, you have a much better chance of seeing the largest number of films if that's what you want to do, because your full series pass entitles you to the press screenings. Now that's usually 3 a day, sometimes as many as 4 a day. But every time you see a press screening, that's one less film that you have to worry about during the film festival, and you can cross it off of your grid work. And you should have a grid work. That's the other thing that's important. Make sure that you have your list of all of the films that are going on, because every time you see one, cross it off from every other spot in the film festival. This is your best chance of seeing the maximum number of films. At the same time, if you find a film that you just simply are so in love with that you want to see every showing of it, that's fine. Do it. There's nothing to say that you can't, especially if you have a full series ticket. You get to go there before anyone else. You get in before anyone else, except possibly the press.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you. You did a really good job. You're one of my ups in terms of talking. You know, because everyone is different. You know, everyone. Some people are reticent. Some people are verbose. Like Linda Mackey was really fun to interview because she just went on one, and I got a lot of good stuff from her.
Well, it's something that you don't really think about, but the enjoyment of films is so important to some of us that it's just like along with the air we breathe and occasionally the food that we eat. Although that's one of the nice things about the film festival is I tend to lose weight while I'm attending it because I don't have time between films to eat a full meal. Maybe at the very end of the day, unless it's Saturday or Friday or Saturday night when we have a midnight movie, and 2 a.m., you're not really all that hungry, although sometimes. But but yes, it's good if you want to get your figure slim and trim, become a full series pass holder.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I'm hoping I can hit the festival the last week of the festival because my school gets out like June 8th, so I'm going to be in an airplane as soon as I move out.
Where are you in school?
I'm going to Stanford University.
Oh, wow.
Studying documentary film and video, and it was interesting. I started this project out with the idea that I would create a portrait of the film festival and show my professor that I need to get to the film festival at least for the last week of the film festival. But I know I can't do that now because the program is so intense. But I'm glad I'm doing this project because I want to preserve the history of festival. It's been going on for the 25th year is going to come up and
or 24th or 26th.
Yeah, well, it's the 24th is next year, and then the year after that's this year's the 24th, and then the year after is the 25th, and people are going to start moving out of the air, which they already have. People are going to start passing away, which some of them have already had. And I said, it's time for me to do this.
I would love to have a commentary from the man who used to be the manager of the Ridgemont Theater, because that's where I had my first experience with foreign films.
I have to get your picture. Is he still around?
I think so, because he wasn't all that old. I'm, that old. Age being the relative thing that it is. I mean, one could die at 30 as well as 80. But I would imagine that he's probably in his mid-late 60s, probably. I mean, not terribly old. But, I mean, there are films that I've gotten to see over the years that if I didn't have at least connections with other people in the film repertoire, even before Paul Fable started working here, there were groups of us who used to go on a regular basis. We'd go out to the Ridgemont, whatever the next new foreign film was. Ingmar Bergman, or we'd go to the, I can't even remember the name of it, the little theater on 50th and University Way, the little box.
Yeah, I remember that. University Theater or something.
Yeah, I saw the wonderful film Siberiad there. and it was one of the most magical films that I've ever seen. It gave me an incredible respect for Russian filmmaking, and thinking to myself, this is something that I want more exposure to. It's like a year ago when we had the man with the film camera and the magnificent Alloy Orchestra to accompany it. That was, to me, one of the highlights of the film festival. It was someplace everybody who could should be there. And literally just about everybody who could was. But it was only once. Those are magical moments, and once they're gone, if you aren't there, you'll hear about it from other people and say, oh, it's too bad you weren't there. That was just one of the best times in the 1990s.
I'll have you sign this for the credits, because I'm going to have the credits, the people's signature, so you can just sign it. And I usually have a book, but I'm going to just keep this in my book, and you can sign your name. Really appreciate that. I'm going to set up and get rid of this thing. You're a natural. It sounds like you've done this before.
Well, I just finished 2 months ago. My high school alumni association called me on the phone and asked if I would be willing to be the guest speaker for the annual banquet. And I thought, gee, this is odd. So the first thing I said was, what happened? Did everybody die?
Yeah.
And no, because of the work that I've been doing with the Queen Anne Historical Society, they wanted to have me there as a representative both of the Historical Society and as one who loved Queen Anne High School so much that I'm a natural for pushing forward any goals and objectives that the Alumni Association has. Which they didn't realize, it wasn't until my talk that I got across to them the fact that the Alumni Association is, for all intents and purposes, a historical society. And nobody had really thought about that before. And I've gotten more comments since, and that was the 11th of October. And I've been in demand ever since.
That's good. That's good.
So I ended up getting elected as a member of the board of the Alumni Association, and now I'm on its newsletter committee, calling people who were movers and shakers in the high school a generation before me.
That's great.
Just having a great time.
So make sure that when you see other film festival people that you can start talking, you share your thoughts about the festival, anything you want to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I've been going to the festival since '83. Full series passes most years. We're a few in the middle. 83, and then like 86 to the present. I've had full series passes. There were a few years while I was at school that I just went to as much as I could without having the pass.
So what kind of what made you decide to get the pass aside from because you've had it for a couple of years now in a row?
Well, I like movies. I try to see as many movies as I can, and basically the things that are more offbeat are the things that might not be back again. I get the full series pass just on the off chance of catching something I'm never going to see again. Because if I was just restricted to buying, actually if I was just buying individual tickets, I probably would buy the things that I think there's not a chance to see again, and maybe the pass is to see the things that I might not necessarily, the Full Monty, which I probably wouldn't have gone to see in the theater, and which I didn't like, by the way. I may be the only person on earth, but I saw that at the festival. I'm glad I saw it. There were amusing moments, but so I don't know why I buy a pass. I just do it. It's an obsession. I don't know.
So what's your strategy for selecting films? I mean, are you a number cruncher? You see like 100 films, or?
I try to see as many as I can. I usually see about 80. I don't exactly have a strategy. The day the program comes out, I grab the paper that it's in, and I circle all the things that I want to see most. And then I just fill up the space, the unknown quantities or the things I'm not too crazy about. And I do try to see something anytime something's showing. I mean, always there are things that are days I just can't stand to see another movie, and I don't go. But or things come up and I have to, obligations. But generally, yeah, I don't think I've ever broken 100, but some years around 90, I suppose.
That's a good number. So you actually can stay away from the festival for a day or so?
Oh yeah, sometimes several days. Last few years I've had to be out of town for usually 3 days in a row, and occasionally I have other things. I have a lot of friends that are in theater. I have to see their plays during the festival, so I take a day off for that. But generally, with this is another good reason to have a full series pass. I can take off at the spur of a moment. I bought this ticket, I have to go now. Plus, being able to get into press screenings is great, because that way I can if there's something I have to see, and it's only going to be at a press screening, I can see it there and have my evening free for whatever I need. So that's.
Do you remember any question and answer sessions that were particularly memorable, or any festival incidents or star encounters?
The question and answer things are usually pretty excruciating. I mean, there's usually a couple of people that ask good questions, but there's always inevitably one question that's just makes you wish you were someplace else. Sometimes they're the people that are thanking the filmmaker for making this film that really touched them in a special way, but it's just like, usually I get those at films I've hated, so it's like, I don't want to hear this, I don't want to know any more about it. And the worst question I have completely forgotten. It was, oh well, too bad. A couple of years ago there was a question that topped everything. It was like one of the questions where someone obviously hadn't been listening to all the other questions that had been asked, and he asked them all again, and they were questions the director, or actually in this case the producer, didn't want to answer. I'm too vague. It's been too long. Oh well. But yeah, no, I'm not. There are no question and answer sessions that stick out in my mind as being great. It's a little perk to the festival to see the more or less famous people, but they rarely add much to the movies.
I take it you're not someone that asks questions or seeks out movie stars to take pictures with?
No, I do ask questions occasionally. I don't think my questions are necessarily that great. The only one that comes to me off the top of my head is I asked Neil Jordan back during Mona Lisa why he thought Company of Wolves had bombed so badly in the United States, and he gave a good answer, the difference in marketing in England and here. And of course it was distributed here by a company that basically specialized in exploitation films, so they marketed it as a horror movie and it bombed, which, I mean, I kind of knew that, but I'd like to hear him address it. Yeah. But yeah, no, my only real star encounter was inadvertently standing in front of Anthony Perkins while Daryl was trying to take his picture, or not Daryl, but I guess he was taking his picture with Daryl and the guy who was the photographer at the time, Steve. I was just standing there, and my friend was saying, Bill, move, and I'm, what? And I turned around, and there was Anthony Perkins, who was very gracious about me getting in his way. Yeah. So no, I don't think I've gotten any autographs.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite seating areas in the theaters that you sit at that you have to sit in? Because some people sit in the front seat, some people sit in the back.
I have various places in various theaters, and a lot of it depends on who I'm with. I have one friend that likes to sit on the sides, and actually she's led me to understand that the aisle seats on the sides in the Egyptian are just about the best for seeing the screen. I shouldn't say this, maybe everybody will sit there. Obviously a lot of people feel, no, the sides aren't good, but if you're on the aisle, there's no head in your way mostly, or if there is a big person sitting in front of you, you can just lean a little bit and you've got a full screen shot, and that's good. A lot of times when I'm by myself at like the Harvard exit or someplace, I sit in the front row. The total immersion thing, I guess.
I know there's a couple other front row seaters that talk to me. Well, tell me some more about your feelings about why Bill sits in the front row.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
Talk more about your feelings about sitting in the front row. Did it develop because of your vision, or?
No, I do it just. I like the overwhelming picture. Plus, there's no one in front of me, and actually, in the Harvard exit, I like it because I can put my feet up on the stage and just like recline. It's like I'm at home, watching, I guess, from the comfort of my couch or something. Not that comfortable, but it's enough. I like to recline, and I can do it, and I'm not disturbing anybody, and so I don't usually sit in the front row at the Egyptian. Usually, if I'm by myself, I sit towards the front. Sometimes, if there's going to be someone famous there, I sit where they usually stand, close to that, so I can see them better. I mean, I don't want to miss the glamour. I mean, I'm not an autograph seeker, but I like to see. It's been disappointing. Most people seem to dress down the last few years. But anyway, and a lot of times if there's a foreign film and I'm alone at the Egyptian, I'll sit back in the back section because the rake is better, so I don't have to worry about heads in front of me. So the seats are more comfortable.
So have you ever done the Secret Film Festival?
Oh yeah.
I know you can't talk about titles, but you can talk about feelings and moods about your Secret Film Festival.
Oh yeah, I like to see a movie with no preconceptions, and that's the great thing about it, is because inevitably, just from reading the program notes, you'll know a lot about a movie beforehand, and I read a little bit in advance for in different film magazines and stuff, so I know what I'm getting into for the most part. But the Secret Festival, a lot of times you don't know, and I've seen some mediocre kind of seem to like thrillers, like comic thrillers or something, and generally they're not very good. But I do enjoy seeing them, and it's something I wouldn't go to see in the theater, and I wouldn't rent on videotape. And I'm glad I got the opportunity, because they usually have at least one moment that's worthwhile. But the Secret Festival is funny because so often they'll show something great and it'll get massive walkouts because it's not what people wanted to see. Who knows what they wanted to see? It certainly wasn't. I mean, sometimes because it's old, or because it's, or I mean just because they don't like it, which is a perfectly good reason. But the strangest thing seems to get walkouts at the film festival. And I remember one comedy a few years ago that I thought the audience loved. There was laughter throughout, huge amounts of laughter. I was with 5 people and we all loved it. But come to find out, it was voted like second worst movie of the festival. So, go figure. It wasn't a great movie, but it had enough wit and, no, I mean, I don't know. But then again, I didn't like the full Monty, so who am I to say? Yeah.
How does the film festival affect your movie viewing throughout the year? Do you see less movies throughout the year, or are you just as fanatic?
No, I go pretty much every night. A lot of times I'll go to older movies or, archival screenings of some sort or other, or things that are at the Grand Aleutian. I don't go to too many. I don't have anything against Hollywood movies. It's just my feeling is like these other things are going to be harder to see. I better see them now, and so a lot of the Oscar contenders slip by me without my ever having seen them. But no, the funny thing I've noticed about the film festival is that there, with 2 or 3 exceptions, I never see the film festival regulars at other movies during the year. So, I mean, I know that there are some people that's their big splurge on movies, and after that they stay home and rent videos. But I don't know, it's just the opposite for me.
So where do you think they go? Do you think they just hide out? Like, have you talked to any of them about what they do?
Well, I mean, and the ones I know, I know that they. I mean, some of them can't afford to. Some of them. Well, I mean, it's just different taste in movies. I mean, most of my favorite movies at the film festivals over the years. The list that the Fool Serious people compile of the best and worst movies as voted on by Full Series Pass holders. The worst list inevitably contains at least one thing that would be among my top 5, and the best list generally has only one or two that I even liked. So I've just got different tastes. So that's probably why I don't see a lot of the people during the year. They're not going to be at the same things. So
You are a year-round moviegoer. That's interesting to hear.
yeah, but most of the other people haven't been that you've spoken to?
No, they do, but you know, people just happen. We catch pass holders at free movies sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's
I'll ask you one last question.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a film that you've seen at the festival and you liked it so much that you saw it later on, or?
Oh yeah, frequently. There's been a few cases where I've seen a movie twice at the festival, and then if I had the opportunity, have seen it later on. I'm not a big repeat moviegoer, but and generally, if I'm going back to something, it's because I have to drag someone else along. It's like I have to see this is the greatest thing ever. In the last few years, The Long Day closes, so that I guess just at the festival. I don't know if it ever opened, or maybe it just played for a week. And then The Crows, Polish film from a few years ago. I saw that twice at the festival and once when it was eventually released. That's I do.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time for this, and it means a lot because I need to have